What's up, friends? How's everybody doing on this Sunday afternoon? I'm sorry, deeply apologize for all the changes with the time. I got 3 young kids, and sometimes things don't go as planned, especially on weekends. That's why I didn't know how I would be able to pull this off. But I'm here, and I went to see Little Mermaid with Nora, and it was surprisingly better than I expected. I did not remember the Little Mermaid story, and a lot of the stories about a dad and his daughter. So that worked out pretty well. Plus, she got to drink ices and eat popcorn, and that's really all she cares about. The movie doesn't really matter, but it was a nice morning. But let's get to the matter at hand. So OCUL released this 12-month data yesterday, obviously. And the noise you're hearing in the background is my dog trying to bury a bone. It's going to bother the crap out of me. I hope he stops. The data was pretty much exactly as everybody expected. The only 2 things you could poke a hole in are that there were, I think, only 5 rescues in month 11 and month 12. And of those 5, 3 of them were discretionary and 2 of them were to protocol. I believe I should. You think I'd have it in front of me right now as I'm talking to you, so I will pull it up. No, there were 6. I'm sorry, there were 6 total rescues out of the remaining 11, if that's correct. So at the end of the day, what was it, like 33% didn't get rescued, and 66% did get rescued by the end of the 12 months. Let me just pull this up here. Yeah. So all that's really fantastic. The people that are kind of pushing back are saying 2 things. So the first thing, it's not that many pushing back, but there's basically one guy on Twitter who's being kind of aggressive in his skepticism. And it's saying basically, if this drug is supposed to work for 8 to 10 months, and then the active drug leaves the eye by month 10 or month 11, you should see, he thinks, and everybody seems to think, 100% of people need to be rescued by month 12, and they should all be because of protocol, not because of physician options. And I think that the disconnect here is that this is real life, and each of these patients, it has a tremendous amount of variability in what their disease is. Hold on one second. The dog's just driving me absolutely crazy. Maze, come on. Let's go. Out. Out. Come on. Come on. It's not going to work. Medicine doesn't work the way you think it would work in a textbook, right? Where this would work for all 15 people exactly the same for the exact amount of time with the exact scores. It's just not practical. It doesn't work like that with any treatment. There's variability to how each individual takes it up. That's the reason why you saw rescues early on by a few different patients. The overall goal is to have something that's not only statistically significant, but that the overwhelming majority of people can last, 7, 8, 9 months without getting rescued. And if you look at this data, again, this is a small n, but it's achieved its goal. Of course it has. And I think that it's not accurate to call to say that the physician rescues are not real rescues. The company never pretended like the physician rescues were not real rescues when they used the 7-month and 10-month data. They counted patient number 10, patient number 13, and in fact, I think up to 7 months, almost all of the rescues were, I'm looking at it, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. At 7 months, every rescue was physician, not by protocol. So when the company reported those numbers, they didn't, uh, asterisk it and say that 100% of people were rescue free. And for proof of that, if you go to slide, hold on. Sorry. If you look at subject 6, it's a perfect example. That's why they did this. Subject 6 had a physician rescue at month 12, and that was the first time you saw any rescue. And they have a slide in here showing subject 6. It's they don't remember the slides, but there's not that many slides in this presentation. And you can see what happened to the central subfield thickness in subject 6 between weeks 48 and weeks 52. Clearly, that hike warranted, in the minds of this physician, a rescue, even if it wasn't as strict of a protocol that was put into the mandatory rescues. And the beauty of this trial, I think, is that in a lot of trials, you could have a placebo effect, you could have patient respondent scores to what drives the efficacy outcome. Whether it's a depression study, you have to disclose how you feel or take a 100-point test, and the end result is what to try to determine what the effect of the drug is doing on the brain. You don't need any of that with this. There are basically two buckets of efficacy here, and neither of them are subjective. One of them is how many letters you are losing every time you get tested, and the other one has to do with the actual makeup of the eye, in this case, central subfield thickness. And it's no matter whether the physician's double-blinded to who they're seeing when they measure these things. They don't know whether it's the placebo arm or the control arm. Excuse me, it's not a placebo, control arm, or it's the drug arm. So they can't make it up, right? They can't bend it to the way they want to bend it. And you have the data about what the letter losses have been, and what the changes in BCVA and CSFT. Okay, that's the key, right? It's literally the entire the two endpoints of the trial, and the only thing you could argue, and this is what people are trying to argue, and even Anthony talked about on the call, is that all 20 people that were enrolled in this trial did not have a material advanced enough disease that no matter how you randomized it, whoever was getting the 15, whatever 15 patients were put into the drug arm, the TKI arm, they would never have needed a rescue. That it was just luck or really good enrollment. Basically, they're alleging fraud, that they enrolled 20 very healthy wet AMD patients, and despite the fact that every single one of them had monthly or semi-monthly anti-VEGF shots up to a year beforehand, that they didn't need those. That's literally what you have to believe, that they were getting anti-VEGF shots for a year that were unnecessary, and that entire group just performs better than what somebody with this disease would have in a randomized, normalized sample of the population of the disease. And that's the first thing. The second thing is this was also studied in Australia in wet eyes, right? Before they ever were given the anti-VEGF treatment to dry the eye. And it worked with the 600 milligram treatment. It did dry most eyes. So we know the drug is active. We know the drug has an effect. And there's no question about that from when you put the two trials together. So then you're left with, is there too much variability in this trial to answer all the questions you need, right? When do you need to start redosing? What percentage of people will make it to month 9 or month 8? Were the criteria to mandatory rescue too stringent, right? If all these physicians decided to rescue on their own, if you look at this chart, patient 8, patient 9, patient 10, and patient 13 all were physician rescued, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the 15 got physician rescues. And it wasn't until month 9 that you had a criteria met rescue from patient 2 that was not previously rescued. I mean, once you've been rescued, the TKI part of it is kind of over, right? It shows you that they needed more anti-VEGF, and that patient is kind of not relevant anymore to the study, right? The minute the first rescue happens. Now, you can argue whether the first rescue was necessary or not, because the criteria wasn't met, but we don't know enough about it, right? They know in the data room, I can tell you that. Come here. Let's go, come on. And by the way, that's what's happening in the data room. So, I was thinking about that today, and I'm sure a lot of you have thought about that. But the data room is basically, they want to know every single detail for every single one of these 20 patients, right? Tell me everything about what they were like before they got this TKI shot, and then tell me detailed analysis of why the physicians rescued patients, 8, 9, 10, and 13. And then, of course, detailed analysis of why number 11, 12, 6, and 4 were rescued towards the end of the trial. And that's not all. They want to see the people that weren't rescued. What did their eyes look like beforehand? Now, who knows how much data they have pre-baseline, but that's what it comes down to. And if you can show slides like they showed with subject 6, then it would seem to me that you have a very good indication that there was active drug working, and you see exactly when it went away. Now, again, a skeptic will say, well, how come this didn't work like this exactly with all 15 patients? And it's just not how it works. For instance, some of these patients might not need shots every 2 months. That's true. Maybe they need shots every 4 months or every 6 months, some of them. So if this active drug doesn't go away until month 10 or month 11, then in theory, you should see rescues, of course, in the remaining 1/3 of patients in the coming months. And they probably have been rescued by now. What's interesting is we don't even know what the protocol is going forward. My guess is that all these patients now are back on anti-VEGF treatment. They don't get redosed with the TKI, right? So amazing. So my guess is we won't know how long they would have lasted without being rescued. But I assume he'll discuss that on the call tomorrow. And just a reminder, they ended their 12-month trial. The end of the last dose there was no doses giving. Sorry, the last checkup for the 12 months was in February. Actually, that's not even true. Sorry, that's not true. It was way before that. I got confused because in the 10-month data, they said data cutoff was the first week of December. And so I assumed you add 2 months for data cutoff for the 12-month data, but it's factually not true. Okay. When they say data cutoff, they're also referring to safety. And I can prove this to you. I did a last video. But if they were able to present 7-month data at the end of September, present it, then you know mathematically by fact that they could present 12-month data by the end of February. Oh, there's my son. Hi. You want to come up here? I'm just doing a video. Oh. This is Leo. Hi, Leo. Okay, I'm talking, okay? You want to stay up here?
Yeah.
Okay. So if they knew it by the end of February, if they could present it by the end of February, then that means that last 12-month shot was given in December. So we're talking, January, February, March, April, May. They're 5 months past the 12-month data. And, they have all these answers already. Whatever answers, but my guess is that they're going back to normal anti-VEGF shots. And it would be I think unethical to just have them wait until they need a rescue at this point, because they're not on a drug anymore. How you doing?
What are those?
I don't know. What's those? So that's that. What else did I wanted to say? You know what it comes down to? Hey, Eva. He is, yeah.
Okay.
While I'm on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
You don't want to come in here unless you want to be on YouTube. You're on YouTube. Hello.
You want to go back over here and have a snack?
You want to go to Mom?
Yeah.
You come back and say hi, okay?
Well, it's not raining anymore.
No. Bye, kiddo. Can you close the door? Okay. Yes, this is De Negoce. This is $9 De Negoce. $9 shipped. Delicious. All that matters tomorrow is this. Okay. And remember, he just talked on Thursday. Okay. All that matters tomorrow is whatever path going forward they're going to do is non-dilutive or minimally dilutive. Whether they do it alone, which I think is bullshit. I don't think it's possible for them to do it alone. I've done the math before. They need $440 million to do wet AMD alone. And they need like 200 to 250 million minimum to do diabetic retinopathy alone. And if they do diabetic retinopathy, they probably can't even launch the trial to Q3 of next year, because it's unlikely, I think, that the interim data is going to be so conclusive that they can launch it in Q1 of next year. So Anthony needs to say that whatever path they take, it'll be minimally dilutive or non-dilutive. And Anthony needs to say the same thing he said on Thursday, which is we're staying up at night. This is nonstop with the discussions. And I think people on the internet are living a very different life than what the company's living. So they have all the information. They're not in any rush, right? Whether it takes another week or another month, it's completely irrelevant to them if they're in control of the process, right? They know everything and we know nothing, okay? The only way we get hurt is if everything's a bluff, there is no term sheets yet, and there is no plan B. And for that all to be true, then the company would have to be a serial liar. And again, I've been doing this for like 20 years. I've had CEOs lie to me. I've had all sorts of different things happen to me. I have more scars than you could ever imagine. But there's a very different nuance between that kind of lying that's happened to me in the past and this kind of lying. And he's not lying. So you could still get burned even if he's not lying. But the wording of his go forward strategy since November has not changed, and it would have been very foolish for him to couple partnership with if we don't do this hand, we will do this hand, which is minimally or non-dilutive. There was no third hand, which is, we double the shares outstanding. And that's what you have to do to raise the kind of money you'd have to raise to do either of these trials. Because make no mistake, if they have to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, they're not doing it at $7. It'll be done at $4 or $3. And it's just not feasible. It's not going to happen. The other thing people are missing is that there are two major shareholders in OCUL. One of them owns almost 20% of the company. And you might not know this, but it's the Sackler family office. It's a family office, and they own almost 20% of the company. They've owned it for years. Okay. The other one is a hedge fund that owns 9% of the company called OCUL. It's a very smart hedge fund. So together, they own nearly 30% of the company. Now, they're not on the board, but they've been around for years, and I'm sure they have insight into what's going on, or at least say into what's going on. So Anthony's not riding this alone. Anthony's extremely invested with shareholders at this point, aligned with the shareholders at this point. He has a huge number of options that are all in the money that would pay off into the tens of millions should this work. Okay, so I'm not concerned with him taking a path that isn't aligned with the rest of us. The risk is that he's overplayed his hand, and that there will be no term sheet at the end of the day. Now, what I would say is that there's no way you get to last Thursday and the language that Anthony was saying on that fireside, which is the same language, similar language he was saying 4 weeks earlier, and they do not have term sheets ready. Just to recap, you should go back and listen to the March fireside chat that he did, I'll tell you I've been kind of sick, and I've not sick like I have a cold sick, like I'm obsessed sick. And I have listened to these chats and these conference calls a half a dozen times each over the course of the last 6 months. You should listen to the Cowen call on March 7th. On that call, that was part of the reason why the stock started going down. He says something basically like, am I confident? No, I'm not confident. You can never be confident in these things. You don't know how they're going to play out, which is incredibly honest, right? If he's this hypester that just likes to say what the market wants to hear, you definitely don't say things like, am I confident? No, I'm not confident. And he says that there. Go listen, March 7th, okay? Now, listen to that and compare it to the May 15th fireside with JMP. And it's night and day, okay? The fireside last Thursday, he didn't even mention going it alone. He said he had a diabetic retinopathy path, but nowhere was it brought up that they would do it alone. He downplayed doing wet AMD superiority because of ethical reasons. They'd have to only enroll internationally. So that removes one of the two lower priced options for them. So all you have left is a $440 million raise to do wet AMD this year, which he said on the Thursday conference call, they plan on being in pivotal TKI trials by the time the November Dextenza ruling comes out. You can't be in that unless you're in an inferiority wet AMD trial, because he said he's not going to do superiority. He basically said that. You can't raise $440 million in a secondary. You can't raise even a partial secondary. I got to close the other door in this house. Too loud. I'll be right back. Come here. Come here. This is why I do this during the weekdays when they're at school. So the final piece of the puzzle is, did the partners not see this data till today? And is it now silent? And has the data room lights been turned off as a result of this? I don't even know. The data was good. Literally, the only thing that I would have liked to see was that the rescues were all mandated, not physician directed. But they purposely put that slide in to show you that there was actual biological activity that was done to the eye that made them rescue it. It just didn't hit the actual threshold. But you see the huge spike up in whatever the hell that shit is, whatever that measures. So the answer is yes. Of course, the partners have had this data for months. There's no way they can't, there's no data room without it. There's no way for them to actually analyze this without seeing full 12-month data. And they've had it for probably 4 or 5 months now. So I'm not at all concerned about this data affecting the data room, or affecting the process, which means as of Thursday, the language was the data rooms, it's off the hook. They literally can't sleep at night. Now, again, if you've been around a long time, then you have your antenna up and you think, oh, well, this sounds like fraud. This sounds like hype. And, you should be naturally skeptical of that. And I would be too, by the way, but my pushback is twofold. One, the data is the data. You can analyze data yourself and you can make a decision whether you think this drug is active and this drug is working. Okay. You don't need Anthony to tell you that. Or some of the most prestigious, eye researchers in the world who are part of this process. You can make your own decision with that. Okay. But number two, he doesn't gain anything from the hype. You hype when you're selling stock. If you think he's actively hitting the ATM right now, it's just not happening. Okay. I would put a 5% chance, which is high, I think, that in the last couple months they've raised money. And if they did that, it would just be to fund a quarter's worth of cash. So maybe they sold $20 million worth of stock to get their cash balance back to 80 million. So they don't have a going concern language in the next queue. Again, I put a 5% chance of that. I don't think that's happened, but it wouldn't be the most imprudent thing to do if you're in the middle of this process. And, he's kind of playing with fire. I mean, the whole company's on the line here, right? And that's another thing that you should realize. Do you think the board would let him take the company to the brink if they weren't comfortable with where they were with the process, right? They would have had to raise money at this point if the process wasn't going well. And I feel strongly, very, very strongly, that they have term sheets already. And the term sheets must be acceptable. And now it's just a case of how long it takes to get to the best term sheet. And, I highlighted in the last video how I got to that. This is just not a lot of money for the people that are interested in something like this, right? I got to basically around a $3 billion NPV. And that's with a 25% probability of success. And with a $3 billion NPV, they probably can get this across the finish line with Ocular for, $500 million, $200 million to Ocular up front, fund the whole $300 million trial, and big milestone payments and a big royalty to them. And, that de-risks it for the pharma because they're just putting up the $500 million. They're not putting up more than that until it works. And I don't, Anthony's out of a job and they don't sign a partner. It's just that simple. The language he's given on these calls, I can read you his own quotes, extremely active data room, 5 requests at once to one guy, sleepless nights. That's not the talk of then coming to the market and saying, oh, we got so close. But, they found something at the last minute. And unfortunately, we couldn't come up with a partner. And, oh yeah, we only have 3/4 of cash left. We're going to be bankrupt in March of next year. So what we did was we're going to do a pipe. We're going to raise 75 million at $3 with 100% warrant coverage because we were just so close. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. This is not a $50 million market cap company. Anthony's a big league guy. It's a real company. It just doesn't work like that. So it's just not, that's not going to be the path. Now, I can't guarantee you there's going to be a partner, and I can't guarantee you what the terms are going to be, but everything points to a robust deal, right? And in theory, the longer it's taking, the better it probably is. And I'll tell you why. At some point, the data room goes quiet. It goes silent, right? There's either no bids, or if there are bids, Anthony doesn't want to hit them. Now, let's talk about that a little more. If everybody's biggest concern is that there are no bids, not that it's going to be a crappy bid. If there are no bids, it doesn't take very long for you to stop asking questions and for you to walk out of the data room. It doesn't make any sense. People drop out of merger processes very early on when they're not interested in the company. Okay. And in this case, it's very different than when you buy a company. It's not like you have to bid a premium to where the stock's trading. You could bid $25 million, for the upfront and say you'll fund the trials, right? You could bid as low as you want. You have to fund the trials, but there's no kind of bar you have to pass. If we're this far along, and we know we're this far along because we know how long they've had the 12-month data for, we know how long he's been talking about this for, that there's still this incredibly active data room, then the only logical conclusion you can come to is that there are multiple people working on this. Now, if you want to be super cynical, it could be that they're all still doing due diligence. There are no bids yet. It's all still in the due diligence phase. And I think that that's not likely, but it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. But if he's doing that, then you have to square that with how he said many times, if they don't take a partner, it will be minimally or non-dilutive to do the other path, right? Everything has to be looked at together in a whole. And I can't get there how they do it the other way. Now, Dextenza is starting to do great. He clearly had some really good language about that on Thursday, and I'm sure Dextenza is going to have a really good quarter two. It's just not enough. So I'm going to read what you guys wrote here, and I'll wrap it up. But I don't. This data. So this data was never the important data. The really most important data was the 10-month data, because you need something that's going to last 8-9 months for most people. If it only lasted 6 months, you don't have anything that's as interesting as what's on the market. The market currently is 4 months. Don't get me wrong, 6 is better than 4. But if you have 80 or 75% of the patients being able to go 9 months without a rescue, you have kind of a game changer in the business. All right, let's see what you say here. Leo's channel in 10 years. When my dad did OCUL YouTube and ruined my life. Yeah, exactly. Tell people to start rolling their 1-week options to get in the train. It's funny. I'm confident to say more June calls as a percentage of whatever than probably anybody else on here, because I'm the one that was buying the June calls back in January. And yeah, I mean, it sucks. It didn't happen by June. It can still happen tomorrow morning. There's probably a 2% chance it happens tomorrow morning. But that's what happens. I mean, it is what it is. I'm really, really surprised it didn't happen by now. But I think the patience will end up paying off for all of us. I agree on your calculation on when 12-month data was known. But given that's the case, how does some sort of deal partnership take this long? It's a great question, Christopher. So it only takes this long if you have a lot of people wanting to buy it, wanting to do it. Because I'll tell you what, it's been so many months that if the data room was dead, if there was no interest in this company, he's actually committing fraud by saying that on public conference calls. legit. And he has other people on the call that know it's not true. So again, I'm not trying to be conspiracy theories here because I think it's wrong. It's not. I believe everything he's saying. So to be crystal clear, that's exactly what you have to ask yourself. If the 12-month data was known since February, and it was known, I think, since the end of January, early February. Because again, to reiterate, they could have presented 12-month data at the end of February, presented it, not gathered it, presented it. Usually it's 8 weeks before that when you get access to it, 4 to 8 weeks before it, because it's maybe a smaller trial. So that's all of February, all of March, all of April, and all of May. So it's been 4 months, 4 full months. They've had the 12-month data available. I wouldn't say that it's terribly overdue, but yeah, we're due any day now for this goddamn news. And Anthony's own words 5 weeks ago were, we hope to be able to tell you very soon. And then later on in the Q&A, he said, in the near future. He said the near future. And then he said, in the very near future. Again, there's no point of hyping. There's no secondary that's happened. If they're hitting the ATM, which I think there's almost a 0% chance they are, that's not the reason he went on this charade, to get to this point. So yeah, what's your answer? How do you answer that question? Why does he have this language, call after call after call, how extremely active the data room is, and how it's in the very near term, and how on Thursday he didn't even bring up going it alone, and how there's always going to be a time to partner, and now seems like the right time. Do you know how silly he looks to be saying that as recently as Thursday, to then not partner? You guys answer the question. Either it's door number one, this is a fraud, which we know it's not true based on we can see access to the data, and we're judging what we think whether this drug works or not. And if it's door number one, it's a fraud. What's the end game? What's he doing? What are they going to do? And by the way, it wouldn't just be Anthony that's involved. It would be everybody at the company, everyone on the call, the board, letting him say things that are materially not true, right? He's not just saying we're in a process and we'll let you know, right? He's not keeping it close guarded. He is screaming from the rooftop saying they are so busy they can't handle it. That's how difficult all this has been for them. And again, he's legally allowed to say that if it's true, and it's great for the company to say that, right? You want there to be a strong stock price, which helps you in negotiations for whatever you're negotiating. A lot of these partnerships, most of them include a stock portion of it. So the higher the stock price, the less you'll dilute, or the less money you'll have to, the more money you'll get for that 10% or 15% stake you sell the pharma company. And he's telling the truth. I'd be doing it on every conference call. Or there's the other bucket, right? It's true. They aren't desperate, Christopher. They want the best terms deals. They have cash for 5 quarters. Actually, Jamie, they do not have cash for 5 quarters. False. They have $60 million of cash as of June 30th, which is 2 weeks from now. And the Extensa will give them a few $million, but they're basically burning $20 million a quarter. They have cash for 3 quarters. And even that's a misnomer because no biotech goes up until the last quarter where they're like, hey, we have cash for 6 more weeks. Most companies don't even go less than 4 quarters before they do a raise. It's very highly unusual to get to under 12 months of cash and not do a raise. You know why? For those of you who don't know, in your quarterly filings, every quarter, the auditor has to say you have enough cash for the next 12 months. If you don't, they put something called a going concern language in your financials. And that is the kiss of death. Okay? And that's even more reason why I'm confident that they know what the hands they have dealt to them. Now, those hands might be 2 different things. It could be we have these partner options here, or we sell Dextenza here. But whatever it is, it's going to be minimally or non-dilutive. And I think they've had this kind of dual path going since January. He started talking about this at Fireside Chats in December and the end of November when the stock went to $3. Go back and listen to them in November and December. And they're not going to change their path now. There's no reason to think they will. The data just got better. In some ways, sorry, I'm going to keep reading here. In some ways, they are desperate. They need the funding to run the trial and start it in a reasonable time frame. And as Matt pointed out, they're under a year of cash. So, okay, that's a great question. Great point, Christopher. They are desperate. But the key for them is to have options. As long as they don't have one person having them against the wall, then they are in control. Now, options can mean a lot of different things. It can mean two partners both interested. It can mean one partner interested and plan B. And I think Anthony has been trying to say for the last 8 months, they can do plan B. Am I like squeezing boobs right now? Good thing Leo left. This is what happens when I do a wine YouTube. In plan B, I do it alone, minimally dilutive. I'm on record saying I think it's bullshit. I don't think they can do it. Okay. I don't even think they could sell the Extensa for what they want to sell it for. I certainly don't think they could raise enough money in cash and in equity and debt to get to that funded till NDA. But they have to at least talk that game. But really what I think their leverage is in plan A, the left boob. In plan A, actually, anybody see Total Recall? Of course you guys have seen Total Recall. There's basically 3 boobs. Plan A has these 2 boobs, and they're 2 different pharma companies. And because they have both of the boobs, they compete with each other. This hand only can go to 1 boob at a time. And that, I think, is the leverage. And that is what's taking so long. And again, the company is not in any rush. If it takes a few more weeks, if it takes another couple months, I don't think it will take another couple months. I wouldn't be shocked to wake up Monday morning with the deal. I really wouldn't be. But again, I put it about 2% chance. And I think that Anthony knows what the issues are. And I think the conference call is going to be very telling, and we'll see what he says. You know, at some point, they're going to have to back off of this if they don't have anybody in the data room. As of Thursday, Bob Smith in the data room hasn't slept in weeks. So unless something changed between Thursday and Monday, I feel pretty good about what the conference call is going to be like on Monday. They had 6-ish months of negotiations. They had 6-ish months of negotiations if they want a Q3 trial start. They have less 2 left. I don't think that Q3 thing means a lot, Christopher. I think Anthony's kind of been a little hype with that. I think if a partner comes in, to really think the big pharma partner is going to launch a phase 3 trial within weeks of signing the partnership, it might take 6 months by the time they actually launch the partnership. Launch the trial. I think Anthony's just saying we're prepared once we have the protocol to launch a trial. But whoever buys this thing is going to probably want to come up with their own exact protocol. And I don't think they're going to rush into it immediately. And the company is still saying they're going to launch a trial by November. And they expect to be in pivotal trials. So maybe I'm wrong. But I don't believe partners, when they partner, green light whatever the company's vision of the trial was within weeks. They tend to move much slower. -718. I've been trying to follow for years with a lot of S's. Please accept LOL. Just post your Twitter name, -718. Put it on here, and anyone can follow me. If they're not MAGA, they're not a burner account, and they're not assholes. That's the only reason why my account's ever been locked. It's not to keep people out. It's that most people are terrible. So I'm just sick of trying to weed it out. But I let everybody in as long as you're not any of those 3 things. MAGA, asshole, burner account. I was buying out in September back in February, but June's not 50% of my call position. I own September too, but June's like 80% of it. I also own some July. Look, that's the problem with options. I mean, it is what it is. I'm very, very surprised we made it top X and there's no deal. We have a whole week left. So let's see what happens. There's no more catalyst for TKI. You know, the data's out there. It's in the public. You know, tomorrow's conference call is going to be very telling. Let's see what happens. I don't think he's committing fraud. Just not sure how people who have the data are so cautious on it. Or I guess that excited about it, they're bidding like crazy. Yeah, that's where I think you're mistaken, Christopher. Big Pharma doesn't need to partner with anybody. So if they're so cautious, they just walk. You know, business development in big pharmaceutical companies is very slow. You only get fired when you fuck up buying someone, or in this case, partnering with somebody. No one ever really gets fired for not doing anything. So the due diligence process can be exhaustive. And yeah, I mean, that's my argument would be, yeah, it's taking a long time because there's so many people. He's told us this. He's told us this multiple times. He said that they can't sleep at night. They're so busy. Just listen to the last 4 conference calls, with firesides and conference calls. I mean, again, either he's lying, and I truly don't believe he is. You know, I've spoken to him twice, and he's incredibly guarded and very honest and not at all full of hype. He comes across to me as very earnest and very ethical. So to me, if I balance what I've heard in private versus what he's saying publicly, I just don't think there's any way he would be that hyperbolic if he didn't know more than we know. Obviously discuss the data. Oh, sorry. Just curious if you're adding on if there's a small sell tomorrow. I have a 40% delta adjusted position. So there's almost no situation where I'm adding tomorrow. It would have to be down big. And if it's down more than 10%, then something went really wrong on the call. I wouldn't begin to tell you where it's going to go tomorrow. I think this data is great. To me, all of this is about partnership at this point. It's really going to come down to what the call is tomorrow in the hour. If Anthony says the right things, which is we're active in the data room, we will go forward with the second path. If we don't have that partnership, minimally or non-dilutive, then the stock's fine. Mind you, on Thursday, he didn't even bring up the second path. So it's not necessarily a negative if he decides not to even bring it up. But if he reiterates partnerships and, you know, I'm reminded of something in my head. No one actually reminded me of this. That was very interesting that happened in the last conference call. Go to the last conference call, and I think her name is Rabah. I apologize if I'm getting her first name wrong, but she's the chief medical officer, and she's asked about diabetic retinopathy. And she says in her answer, we will be more clear about our plans going forward once the partnering process has concluded. She didn't say when the capital raising process has been concluded, right? She didn't say when the Dextenza selling process has been concluded. She said when the partnering process has been concluded. I think that was a slip up. And I think it's very clear that everything about this company's future depends on this partner process. And there is no plan B. And even diabetic retinopathy is relevant to the partnering process, which she said in the conference call. Go read it. It's possible people are overestimating how quickly big companies are able to move. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying, Glenn. They're not in any rush. And unless they're told this is the last week, you know, final bids due, then they're not going to, you know, put that final bid in. They have no incentive until they're told this is the deadline. HR would like to speak with you. Honestly, that total recall bit was one of my favorites in YouTube history. I've done over 100 YouTubes in the last few years. It'll be very interesting if my kids ever watch these one day. I'm going to guess they won't because kids don't give a fuck about anything your parents do. It's possible people, oh, you're right, that. Oh, you're Yoldish 718. All right, let me just copy paste that. I'll do that later today or tomorrow, Yoldish. My pleasure. That right there. Okay. Got 43 of you guys. Somebody must have posted this on Twitter because I never get this many people on a live YouTube. Thanks for the clarification from Q3 language. Also, by the way, in the press release on Saturday, this is a huge thing I didn't mention. Great. In the press release on Saturday, they added the language that the financing could be subject to a strategic alliance. That language was deleted from the earnings press release in Q1. And it was talked about on the conference call, don't get me wrong, but the language was removed from the press release in earnings Q1, and then it went back in the press release on Saturday. Go look for yourself. Now you tell me why you would reinsert language if their process was stalled or dead, which we know it isn't. I was told, by the way, they deleted it from the press release for brevity, not because there was anything to read into. Oh boy. My kids want me. Hold on one second. If you want me, you go. You go. Let's go. It's okay. You gotta... Come on. Come here. Come here. What you got? You want to show them what you made me?
I got to give this to afterwards.
You can give it to me now. It's okay. I'm sorry. Mom just wanted to know I was doing work stuff. Did you make this for me?
Yeah.
That's so nice of you. Thank you. I'm sorry. It's okay. Can you go back to Mom? Want to make me something else?
Yeah.
All right, go make me something else.
No.
No? You want to stay here for a minute? Okay. I'm almost done anyway. So they added the language back. Why? You know, again, it just seems all so clear to me. That's it.
But we're having waves up and down.
It's up there. It's up here so that the camera goes. It's elevated. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. Let me just finish the questions here. Everyone on the YouTube get called to Vegas. Everybody gets invited to Vegas. The Vegas thing is an open invitation to every person that wants to come, and it should happen within 4 to 6 weeks of a partnership. Assuming the partnership's not for like a box of Twinkies and Anthony makes all of us one of these. I love that though.
Bye.
Are you getting up at 5:30 for the call? Are you crazy? I'm probably not even going to sleep tonight. Of course I'll be up at 5:30 for the call. I was thinking about doing the call live on YouTube, but I really just kind of want to soak it in for myself. And I'll do a call. I'll do a YouTube after the call. Maybe not right when the market opens, but sometime after the market opens tomorrow. I've been pending for months. Please approve. Where are you going, Leo? Yeah. This YouTube, by the way, is sponsored by Trojan Condoms. You good, buddy? All right. Because without Trojan condoms, you accidentally have twins. Only about a few of you will understand what that means. But let's just say Leo is a pleasant surprise. Nice modern art. No mid-July. That's my wife's due date. Christopher, wait a second. You think your wife is going to let you go to Las Vegas after she gives birth? You want this to happen before the due date because your life is over, Christopher, for at least 6 months, maybe a full year.
Daddy,
Yes, Leo.
there's a bee walking.
There's a bee?
There's a bee walking.
A big what?
A big bee that's walking.
Oh, a bee's walking?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, just stay away from it because it'll sting you.
Okay.
I'll be out in a minute.
Can I look at it?
You can look at it, but don't touch it, okay?
I want to look at it with my eyes.
Holy cow. All right, everybody. I love you. Tomorrow's going to be good. Get a good night rest, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Peace. Bye.